announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello there and welcome back to Celtic World Order. I, as always, is Stevo Matt. It's an absolute pleasure to have you back here join us on the channel for something of another brand new content, a wee bit different for our normal scheduled programming, a wee special edition, if you will. So, as always, the man to the side of me, my bearded brethren, the OG, my sidekick, if you want to call it that, all equal and all beautiful, it is Paddy Boy. How we doing, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. Excited for this. Really excited.
Absolutely. So, you probably don't want to listen to us. You came here, you've seen the thumbnail by now. So, we have a very special guest on tonight. A man who needs no introduction. A man that bleeds green and white. If you wanted to talk about being a true Celtic man, if you wanted to talk about someone that shows the passion, the commitment, and what it means to be a Celtic supporter, as well as being a bona fide legend and a man with medals to go with it, then this man needs no introduction. So it's my absolute pleasure to welcome to the show Mr. Peter Grant. Peter, thank you for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure. How are you?
Magic, Stevo. Great to see you guys, you and Paddy there. So looking forward to it, and thank you very much for inviting me on.
It's our pleasure. It's always great to reach out to people and to be entertained. People want to come on and speak to us. I'm sure, as I say, people don't want to listen to Paddy and I's ramblings. They want to hear from yourself, and I'm sure you've got plenty of stories because you're a man that's known to have a good bit of quip about you, a good sharp tongue at times, and many a story.
Maybe
a character, I think they call it, isn't it? So it's an absolute pleasure. So, firstly, before we get into it, how have you been keeping? And that Champions League draw was just done there before we came on. You excited about that?
Always excited because, listen, you want to be involved in the big games. I'm one of these guys that, maybe I'm a purist in the respect to that. I want to play Real Madrid, Barcelona. I want to be getting the best clubs to play against them because I think the Celtic supporters deserve that as well. Yes, we've had a few hard years of obviously the results and whatever, but I'd rather be in that and fighting for that and trying to get a result than not be in it, that's for sure. But this draw, name-wise, it looks very favourable, especially the home games. You think, they're games, especially the way our team's playing, and that's more important. And I think that's been the thing over probably the last couple of years. I've noticed that we're going to games now to try and win, whether it's home or away. And that was under Ange and Brendan, obviously, last year. The results never went the way we'd like them to go at times. We had a lot of chances to do that. Even the Real Madrid game at home, Vermeer misses a chance just after half-time to put us 1-0 up. Obviously, when they score then, they're top-quality players. But that's the difference at that level. You have to take your chances against the very best.
Yeah.
We've also got to remember as supporters that some of these strikers are £150 million they're paying for them. And I think sometimes us as Celtic supporters, we forget that because we always think we are the best and we are the best. But if you understand what I'm trying to say, you're talking about paying that types of money for players. I think that's another stratosphere.
So 100%. Listen, I'm in the same boat as you. I want to play against all of the big teams as well. And I fear nobody at Parkhead. We've done the job there. We've beat Barcelona. We've beat AC Milan. I thought the game against Atletico Madrid last year as well was very unreal. That was absolutely outstanding. I was privileged to be at that as well. So we fear nobody. I mean, Celtic Park's an absolute cauldron, I'm sure you're aware. So yeah, fear nobody in there.
We won games there. When people talk about it, and sometimes we don't know the answer to it, why it happened, but I do, because Celtic Park was unique. It is different. You know, the atmosphere and that is completely different. And I'm talking about the old Celtic Park as well was unique. You know, even though the Rangers end was back a little bit, but the atmosphere we had in some every European game there. I mean, I'll talk about the ones just before I came into the side, Sport in Lisbon, 5-0, you see the jersey there, so it was 5-0, but an atmosphere that night, then playing Ajax just before I came in 1982, was that? 1982, I think it was. Obviously, draw 2-2 at home, but then you go to Amsterdam and you win 2-1. There was places and games we've won. It's just because of the uniqueness of Celtic Park, and that I don't think that ever changes. And it's been magic to listen over the years when you hear superstars talking about Celtic Park. Saying it's a place they would like to sit, and the Pirlo's not up to this day and age talking about it that way. And that's something that Celtic supporters should hold in high regard, because it's them that create that atmosphere for the opposition to play in, and also for us having the love and the joy to be able to be part of it as players.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got 4 games now with the new format. It's quite interesting. It's actually quite exciting. As you say, as the games are there and you look at it on paper, and it is always the term on paper, isn't it? It looks, you know, before we came on, we're sort of thinking to ourselves, what do we think? You could see, what, 10, 12 points out of that and see where it takes you. I actually saw something where they suggested that, according to, I don't know, these so-called experts, that around about 9 points would maybe make you get into that sort of divide. But looking, as you say, with the unique atmosphere we've got, the way Celtic are playing now, the manager, and hopefully some of the additional signings, that we can go there and, you know, get it back. We've been nearly men at home recently, but, you know, you go back to as far as you're saying, and even in more sort of recent times under Martin O'Neill, for example, some of those nights were absolutely electric, and I think that's really would galvanise us and put us back on the map a wee bit, European-wise, if we could get some wins there. So there's reason to be optimistic, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, you look at the team, obviously we've lost Matt just recently, and obviously that's a blow with that quality, because he's been outstanding at Celtic. But you remember, you paid 1.5 million for him, and you got the performances you did from him, and we get the money with it. Fantastic, great for a kid. And I think he was a credit to himself, the way he handled his business.
Definitely.
He represented Celtic in the right way, and I think that's always important, that he still trained and played to the moment he left the club. And he gave that 100% commitment and quality, which is the most important thing. So you wish him nothing but success.
Yeah.
But that's what you want these players to all step up to have that hunger, to go and perform. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that's what the players want to do. The new guys will come in, and if they've got the quality, because when you're bringing new guys in, the players right away judge them on the training pitch. Forget supporters and manager and whatever else. The players right away want them, is he going to raise the bar on the training pitch? And what happens with that then is the other boys raise the bar because they want to stay in the team. You know, all these things. And as I say, the biggest battle becomes on the training pitch, because with your mates, yes, but you're the one that wants to be starting the game. So you want to be fighting for your life, that when that Champions League music or league music, it doesn't matter, but Champions League we're talking about there, if you're walking out there, you want to be in that starting 11. And that's what galvanises you. And as you say, you've got 4 games at home and you've got 4 games away, which is magnificent. And it's the arena that Celtic deserve to be in. The club, the history, everything it gets up. You deserve to be in it, yes, but you've got to earn that. And Celtic have done that with the way they've been about their business for many, many years now.
Well, and that's it. And you'll know best and more than any is having played in a lot of big games, as you say, in the 2 incarnations of Celtic Park. You'll have felt that roar for different sort of perspectives. It'd be hard to tell, I guess, if I asked you what you thought was more better, the original or the new version. You know, I suppose that's a subjective one. But we'll get on to that, and then we'll get on to more as well. So we'll get round to you, as I say, so, you know, rather than we'll get plenty of time to chat, but let's find out a bit about yourself, and let's just, I suppose, the easiest way, isn't it? Let's just start right back at the beginning. We always say Celtic's a family. It's something that you're born into. More often than not, you're a Celtic fan before you know it. You know, like Paddy and I, we were conceived as Celtic fans, if you will. You know, as soon as I was born, there was a Celtic scarf fired around me. That is the way it is, isn't it, as a Celtic fan?
That's the way it was.
Yourself, I believe you were born probably in the same maternity yourselves, Bells Hill, and you were a Chapel Hole boy growing up. So a stone's throw from our origins down in Coatbridge, and both very much green and white in their respective areas there. So going back to just, as I say, being a boy and being a Celtic fan, what's your sort of Celtic story? Was it a father? Was it a grandfather? Was it an uncle? What was your sort of introduction to the club, if you will?
Well, as you say, with the area you came from, anybody who's interested in football was Celtic. As far as I was concerned in Chapel, I never knew there was another team apart from Celtic, really, in the respect of that. So you were brought up that way. Both grandparents ran Celtic supporters buses, so that was always easy. All the family went to the games on the supporters buses. So one was from Hollytown, but even though my grandfather was a Chapel Hall man, he was from with Hollytown bus they ran. And my other grandfather was Cleland. He ran the Cleland Celtic Supporters Club. So for many, many years they'd done that. And then, as you say, you're just brought up. In my first game, going to watch Celtic, you're around about 6. Obviously, you're out playing with the ball like everybody else. Christmas present, that's all you needed, was a ball and a Celtic top. And
simpler and cheaper times.
Absolutely. And you were as happy as Larry. Yeah, but that was you. No problem. If you got a ball, that was you finished. You didn't need anything else. And we're all the same. And then you had the Celtic top. You maybe, the shorts didn't match, or the socks were different, you know, because at that time it was maybe too expensive even then. So you were getting the top and you were walking as proud as punch. But that had to be washed so you could get it on first thing the next morning again, you know, or not washed. It was actually just scrubbed and get the dirt out, and then you put it back on again, you know. And we were all like that. And then I was fortunate enough, around about 5, 6, 7. I think my first game was went the supporters bus to Muirton. There was old St Johnson, and unfortunately Celtic lost that game 2-1. And my grandfather turned around and says to me, "You'll not be back. You're a jinx." And so that was me. That was an early shot across the bows for me. You know, think, wow, God Almighty. You know, Celtic getting beaten. I was there, and my grandfather says, "I'm not going back." You know, we used to call them our grandfathers, our dads. You know, we used to call them our dad or big dad. That was the way it was. But you were smitten then, and you were talking about then going to big European games. You were standing. We used to stand in the Rangers then actually, because the buses parked at that side near the Iron Brew factory, I think it was at the particular time. Yeah. And we used to park there, so all the buses were there. And getting up in Celtic Park and they floodlights was just something magical. It was looking up to heaven. You know, these steps up, you were walking and there were so many steps, it just seemed as if it was an eternity. And then when it just opened, when you got up there, on many occasions I was in tears. I remember one night, I think, I'm not sure if it was the Atletico Madrid game when they all get sent off and whatever, or if it was Ball. Celtic played actually Ball. And I remember being in tears because there was that many people in the Rangers then. You were sitting at big numbers, if you remember, the big black numbers on the white. And I was sitting on the top of that. There was that many people outside still trying to go up the stairs, and it was crushed back to them there trying to see in and all these things. And I was in tears thinking, oh, I'm going to fall and get lost in the crowd here. And you think all these things. Magical memories looking on the pitch. The pitch looked so small. But the noise, the atmosphere, just everything about it. Here's in the back, even at that age, you just knew it was something magical. And you didn't know, you did actually think it was magical. You thought when you were back into the bus and went home, everything shut down then. You know, that wasn't there anymore. That wasn't there anymore. So you went there again and it would open up again. And they were the magical feelings you had. But you were smitten, as I say, as a youngster playing football. One, because Celtic was your club and the family all supported Celtic. And all of a sudden, the only thing you had was a ball, so all you did was play. And it was all the Celtic players' names you were. You know, as a youngster, for me, I was born in 65, 67, obviously won the European Cup, but then my father's was Bobby Murdoch was his hero, so that became my hero.
Fortunate to have from good stock to watch, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm like, Bobby Murdoch's my hero then, you know, that was the way it was. And you're out the back trying to be Bobby Murdoch and hitting the ball off the wall yourself, because I had 3 sisters, you know, so I had no brother. But I'm
the same, no brother. I know that feeling.
Absolutely. So they ended up all following. They were all Celtic supporters going to the games. And in later years, my wife, Lorraine's father, Jimmy, owned Cole's Bar, the famous Phil Cole's Celtic pub. So they owned, and that's where I met her with the great Tommy Burns, actually, believe it or not. So it's always been part of my life, you know, and I just loved watching Celtic at that particular time. You couldn't get to a lot of games, but when you did go, and you had the scarf around your neck, that was all you had. You had your duffel coat on at that particular time, the scarf around your neck, your tammy, and that was your way to the game. And it just was something surreal, really, you know. And then, as I say, later years, go to school and that, you end up playing with the St Aloysius Primary. I was very fortunate. It was the first time we'd won any trophies, and we played in 3 finals. The 3 cups we entered, we won the 3 of them. And I was very fortunate at that particular time because I was a centre forward, believe it or not. Nobody knew what position.
Really?
You just get put there. And I was a centre forward, and we played Tannock side primary in the 3 finals, believe it or not. I can always remember that.
Have you been in disguise for all those years? You were
absolutely. But the funny story is, I played in the 3 finals. The first one we played at Thornleywood Juniors, and we won, I think it was 4-1. I scored 2. The second one we played at Bellsill Juniors, and we won 3-2. I scored a hat-trick. The next one, we won.
Where was this Peter Grant when I was growing up? Where was all these goals?
The story is, the next one, I scored 2 in, and we won 4-1. So, John Clark, the great John Clark, the legendary John Clark's a Chapel Hall man. I'm playing as a centre forward. He's telling Celtic I should be going and signing Peter Grant. I'm 10, 11 at that particular time. But you can't do an S4 in tier 12.
Yeah.
But there's a few clubs obviously trying to get us and whatever. But I'm hearing this whisper about Celtic and want us and whatever, and I'm thinking, well, there is nowhere else I'm going, so I don't care who comes or whatever. But the ironic thing was, I ended up getting into the boys' club, and I never ever played centre forward in my life again.
Wow.
My first year, I played centre half, and there was a famous photo in all the papers at the time, because it was the first time that the great Billy McNeil and the great Jock Stein met, when one became the Celtic manager, one became the Scotland manager. And the photo was me getting player of the year. And it was all over the front pages of the newspapers, because it was the first time they'd met since then. So it was unbelievable. I look back now and I think, at the time, you probably don't appreciate it, but Jock started the ball rolling, and then Billy signed me his first time as Celtic manager as an S for him, because John was obviously his assistant. So I went in there and went to the boys' club. First year I played centre half, believe it or not, but I scored about 30 goals, 40 goals. It was incredible. But then after that, I played midfield. But nobody told you you were a midfielder or a defender or an attacker. The coaches just put you in there. You never really get coached. You just played. And that's why I feel a wee bit for the boys nowadays. We didn't know what we were. We didn't know where. You just played a game of football. It was like playing with your pals. And that was the exact same with the school. But I was to talk about fortune, that was a fortune I had, that John Clark was there. He was a Chapel Hall man. It was the first time we'd got into any finals of any sort. And we were fortunate enough to get John that came to the game and watched the games. And as I say, I played centre forward and scored in the games. And then I got that opportunity. And that could be just that little bit of fortune and luck that I needed. You know,
Wow.
I love playing football, but that was the blessing that I'd got. And I always say, no matter what talent anybody's got, you always need the bit of fortune, a big bit of fortune to go along with it as well. So St Aloysius was my primary school. Go to high school, similar area to you guys, and then I find out that you guys go to the same school as me.
There we go, St Pat's. Yes, that's it. Bring it on.
And I can always remember, and you'll probably remember yourself, I don't know if it's still the same because you're a lot younger than me. Your first day you went round the different school classes, so you had a maths teacher. So that's completely different from primary, isn't it? You had the full teacher the full year round for everything, you know, maths, English, whatever it was you were getting. But when you went to the high school, it was maths teacher for this and English teacher for that. So I got into maths, and I remember the teacher saying, Mr. McMullen saying to me, going round the school, going round the classroom, the boys are wanting to be policemen, some guys priests. I don't think that was ever in my eyes, you know, priests. Some people, the girls wanted to be nurses, some guys wanted to do this and that. And I'm thinking, when he comes to me, what am I going to say? So he comes to me and you're thinking in your head, well, I just make one up. And I went, no, I'm going to play for Celtic. And he went, yeah, you and millions of others, son. And just went past me after that. But the ironic thing is, and I'll finish the story now, even though you can talk about other things. What happened was, when I made my debut, we can speak about that, how it happened. But when I made my debut, it was obviously against Rangers at Ibrox. But the following week, we played Hibs at Celtic Park. And that was always my dream. The debute's great, but my dream was always to go out to Celtic Park just once, to walk on. Nothing else. You could have taken me away in a box after that. That's all I wanted to do. I go to Celtic Park. We beat Hibs, I think it was 3-2, I think the result was. We won 3-2. That was my job done. Both grandparents I didn't know were coming to the game. One was in a wheelchair by this time. Both grandparents were fortunate enough to get me see me when they were alive, playing for their grandson at 10 of the games. So that was a great pleasure when I heard that after the game. The ironic thing, when I go out the front door at Celtic Park after the game, proudest punch, obviously first game, played there, blah, blah, blah. Mr. McMullen's waiting there. He shakes my hand and says, you told me, son. And that was something that sticks in my mind always. But for the first day at high school,
a brilliant full circle, isn't it? You have written that better.
To waiting outside for me, to tell me.
Did he ask for your autograph?
No, I don't think. You must have been the only one. As I say, it was a great memory because, as I say, obviously playing at Ibrox, which we'll talk about, but one I always wanted to do was Celtic Park, to walk on. And as I say, he could have taken me away then, but the fact that Mr. McMullen was out there, remembered what I'd said to him, and he was there to congratulate me, was something special.
That's
class. I mean, it must be some feeling, as you say. We're the exact same, you know, we're about 40 ourselves, and we never get that chance. You know, I would love to just step onto the grass at Celtic Park, and no, I don't, you know, everybody wants to fire one into the net. It would be nice, but it's even just to kick a ball across Celtic Park.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but that's what we all feel. And that's what we all did feel. And that's what I'm saying. That's why you need a little bit of fortune to go with. I played along with much better players. I felt, even at schoolboy, I know I was a good player at schoolboy, but I had the opportunity for people to see you. And the opportunity was there for other boys to be seen. Because I was playing for Coatbridge schools. I was playing for Coatbridge and Airdrie schools. I was playing for Scotland schoolboys. I was playing for Celtic Boys Club, and I was playing for Lanarkshire schools. I was playing for all of them at the one time. Now these kids sometimes don't get a game for 4 weeks now, and then we talk about the dearth of talent. That's the thing I was doing. So it gave people an opportunity to see me, obviously playing, but also gave other boys an opportunity. So some of them end up at Aberdeen, Dundee United, who were excellent sides at that particular time.
Yeah, definitely.
But that was where they got the opportunity from, was the school football, because people got to see us so often. And that's my argument now, is about the amount of substitutes. And as I say, that's a different story. But the amount of substitutes and that now, especially youth football and that, is ridiculous. And it just shouldn't happen for me, because these boys need to be playing. And that's why I'm saying, I talk about my time. We had a lot of fortune. People talk about money now. Fortune for me didn't mean money. Fortune meant the opportunity to play for Celtic. That was the fortune I had.
Oh, definitely. Well, as you say, you built up, you managed to live the dream. You get yourself into Celtic. So at the time when you come in, would I be right in saying it would be Billy McNeil around at the time that you've come in there?
Yeah.
And obviously you come in and you says, we've just learned something. You were a striker, who would have thought it? But I'm sure, you'll say this yourself, you would have played anywhere. You would have played in goals if they wanted to, such was the desire to play for Celtic. But just to give us, our younger guys here and many watching, what was it sort of like, as you says, and you mentioned modern day football and there's a lot of money, and it was more of a working man's game, I suppose, when you came into things. And obviously we look at the old school Celtic Park, and it was very much, as you say, you come in, you graft, and it's a man's game, if you want to call it that, different era. You come in, and obviously Billy McNeil, you've been growing up. This is an icon of Celtic Football Club. What's it like coming in and seeing a guy that sort of aura? Is it intimidating when you've got somebody like him?
Well, you've got to remember, at our time, people think the reserve team was full of old men. And it was anything but. So I got into Celtic at 15. I left St Pat's at 15 because the way my birthday fell, I could leave at 15. So they called it the ground staff then you were into. So that's you going full time, but you're on the ground staff. So you train as normal like everybody else. I was very fortunate. The great Bobby Lennox and Jimmy Johnson were coaches there at that particular time. So I'm walking in that door thinking, wow, I've died and went to heaven here. That's the first guys you're bumping into. So I'm 15 years of age then. So the ground staff consisted of Paul McStay, the great Paul McStay, wee Only Archdeacon, a boy called Stevie Jardine from Greenock, who was a fantastic guy and player as well, but very unfortunate, and the late John Sludden, who was a massive, massive Celtic supporter and a wonderful player as well, and had a really good career, but a really talented boy. And he was also a nephew of the great Neely Mockin, who was the ground staff boss, believe it or not, and myself. So we were on the ground staff, but you had no reserve team, so it was under 16s no youth team, so it was under 16s to the reserve team you went to. Because the first team squad would probably consist of 18 players if you were lucky, and the ground staff you to train, obviously, with the reserves or whatever. There was a bunch of reserves there, and all of a sudden, you would clean all the gear after it. But I'm looking in a dressing room with the greats, and it was probably the team I ended up breaking into. I didn't realise that at the time, but when I went in full time, it was the Danny McGrains, the great Tommy Burnses, the Davy Provins, the Johnny Doyles, all these guys and many, many more, George McCluskey, 78, probably 82, all these guys, Murdo and that come and join, so this is the team, little do I know further down the line, that I'm going to be breaking into. I could tell 10 men won the league team, I call it, 1980, you know what I mean? So they'd started really around about 78, and I'm in at Celtic then, so this is me getting in full time. And I'm joining these, I'm in this dressing room, I'm walking in there and they're knowing my name and saying good morning to me or whatever, or giving me a hard time or whatever, just because you're a young boy, really letting you know who's the boss sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it. I was going back home after training, waiting in a big bus, the 35, big green double-decker, which came every 2 days, really, to be perfectly honest with you. It was that bad. You'd be waiting 3 hours on down at the bottom of the road to get back home, and you went through every village you possibly could. It took you an hour and a half to get there, and an hour and a half to get back, because you'd no car or whatever. And I just loved it. You know, I never looked upon it as a chore. I looked upon it as if this is what I've always wanted to do. Hence, you end up getting the name the janitor in later years because you were first in and last out. Because I knew one day it would come to an end, and I never ever wanted it to end.
Yeah.
But I was very astute early on, because I watched the greats like Danny McGrain, the greats Tommy Burns. What did they do different from anybody else? After they train like everybody else, everybody trains. They're all very, very good players. They're all excellent players. You know, does there anything they do different that makes them different? And I'd watch them, and they'd disappear up the main stand, and they'd go up into this loft, which was frozen cold. Honest to God, there were polar bears and that up there. It was that bad. There was no gym. It was all rusty things. And these guys would be up there. Danny would do sits against the wall. Tommy would be doing sit-ups and press-ups and pull-ups. That was all. Danny would be doing sits for minutes. He had the best legs I've ever seen in a footballer. But he used to do that so he wouldn't have problems with his knees. Simple things. And then the press-ups, the sit-ups as well. Him and Tommy religiously done it. And I thought, maybe that's the difference. So, but they had coats on, it was that cold, as I say. So I used to do that then. When they went away down the stairs, I didn't want to embarrass myself, as I was like a wee sheep. They never really said much to you, you know, they'd always speak to you in that way, but they would never say, you need to do this or you need to do that. They never did that. They led by example, if you understand. You watch them, and it's up to you if you want to do it.
Follow on.
It's your job, you know?
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate. I was like a lapdog. I was up there, and then I'm thinking, well, when I finish my chores down the stair with Nearly, I'm going up there to do that. I don't care what time the bus is. If I miss it, I'll get the next one, sort of thing. And you just wanted to add that wee bits to think, because you knew they'd always be good players. And you've got to remember then, what happened was, if you were good, the guy above you was better than you, obviously. And if somebody else come in below you was good, you would get released. They wouldn't just hold on to you. So the amount of good players, that's why Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, Dundee United were all so good then, because you've got to remember, if these guys didn't sign for Celtic or Rangers, they were away playing for Aberdeen, Hibs, Motherwell, all these clubs, they were all playing. So that's why these teams were so strong in that period. Aberdeen team that won the European games, when I broke into the team, they predominantly were all Glasgow boys. There was a few for Aberdeen, but they used to hold the biggest sort of youth tournament in Glasgow, was the Bobby Calder tournament. So if you didn't sign for Celtic or Rangers, the next port of call was Aberdeen, really. You know, and that's why you end up with so many Glasgow boys playing in that wonderful Aberdeen side. And everybody was playing. Then we were fortunate, as I said, it's under 16 to the reserve team, but the first year the BP Youth Cup was run, which was an under 18 Youth Cup. So anybody that was in the reserves could play in it if they were under 18. And obviously us coming out for the under 16s, which was a big jump for us to play under 18 in reserve.
You're not the captain of that team, were you not?
Yeah, I was. I was
Inaugural.
very fortunate. I had a really, really good sides at that time, but it was the first time it was run. So we played Dundee United at Tannadice, and we beat them at Tannadice 3-0, I think it was, or 4-0. We played Aberdeen at Pittodrie and beat them 2-0, I think it was. And then we beat Rangers in the final at Celtic Park 2-0. And they had the likes of Ian Durant, Derek Ferguson, all a really, really good, strong side.
What were the kind of names, Peter, that were in amongst you in that team?
Yeah, we only Archdeacon, Tony Shepherd, Big Derek White, you know, Stevie Keane, John Thompson was a goalkeeper. We made a hell of a lot of good players, you know, as well. But what Derek Mills, who decided to go to Harvard University because he was cute enough that he felt he was good enough to come in at Celtic Park without a shadow of a doubt. He had a slight problem with his knee, and he made the choice to go to Harvard, believe it or not, because he thought his knee wouldn't last as a career. And he was a wonderful, really strong, typical Celtic centre forward, you would say. Really powerful, really quick, and knew where the back of the net was. But he decided to go to Harvard University. And it was the right choice for him because he retired at 50 and plays football around the world now. You know?
On that as well, Stevo has got a cracking story about Derek White, isn't he, Stevo?
Oh, God, aye. Oh, God, aye. You're going to embarrass me now, aren't you? No, it's funny, Scott, as we say, well, we were talking, you brought up Derek. You brought up his name and it was quite interesting. So again, we talk about being kids, and like you did, you get the football top on you, as I says. And I started to really get my memories around about sort of 90, 91, I'd be about 6. And Anyway, to digress, we stayed in Coatbridge, and we stayed in a terracing bit called Clifton Place. So I think it's
I
been
know
like
exactly
steps.
where you are.
So it was like steps. So we were in the middle one, and Derek White at the time was playing with yourself, and he was at Celtic, and his wife at the time, Wilma, his in-laws stayed over the back for us. So I'm out, and my mum and dad always slaughter me. They always tell a story, and it's still funny, but you think it, you go, God's sake, right? So I'm a wee guy. I'm running about. I must be about 5.5, and I've got my Celtic top on. I'm putting the ball around, and Derek comes down. He was always flash, Derek, the hair and the suits and the order. Yeah, exactly, and the big pearly smile, And he came down, the trophy wife at the time, and he'd come down, and I'm playing football, and mum and dad, how you doing, Derek? How you doing? And he leans over the fence because you could look in the garden. He's like, all right, wee man, I'm on the Celtic, and I'm playing football, and I turned round and went, fuck off, I'm playing football. And my mum and dad are like, oh, sorry, Derek, sorry.
He'd have loved that.
and as like, they says, he just laughed about it, and they're like, what are you embarrassing?
I'll still speak to
It's
Derek to
one of
this
your
day.
heroes you're watching on the telly, and you're telling me F off.
Yeah. Well, I speak to him every day still to this day. He's been in Dubai near enough for 20 years now. He's made a fantastic life out there for himself as well, with his family. And as I said, they were great guys and great memories. We used to go to Guidi's in Coatbridge. That was the place we used to go on a Sunday. So that's
R.I.P. Guidi's, it's gone.
Exactly. It was original then, just in the back bit, but it's all done up in later years.
Before the extension, the old brick building, that's right.
So if we had a good result, sometimes we used to just go over there on the Sunday or whatever, or the Saturday evening. So great memories. But as you say, I obviously went to school at the top of the hill, and Derek used to come over, obviously. But we had a right good side in at the youth team. But yeah, again, it was an opportunity for people to see these players. So if you weren't going to make it with Celtic, you were going to get an opportunity to go elsewhere. And this was always the thing. And I cry out for even at this moment in time. So there was a lot of really, really good players who never got the fortune to play, but it didn't mean they were a bad player. It just at that particular time, there was maybe somebody just ahead of them, and maybe the guy come behind them was just a little bit they had more maybe faith in, but they wouldn't hold on and have 30 players hanging about a dressing room who half of them weren't going to get a game. If you weren't going to get a game, you weren't going to be there. And really, if you weren't going to break into the first team when about 17, 18, you weren't going to be there either. It wasn't like nowadays where you can be 23, 24 before you kick the first ball in the first team.
That's interesting, Peter, because just to digress here, just ask, see when you mention that, it's true, it has changed times as we say, but you're very clear in what you say. Like when you look along that sort of period, there was a lot more strength across the league. And we always say, do you reckon to an extent money has maybe ruined the modern game? Because as you're saying, there's got to be a cut-off point, and there'll be many players that we can look at down the line with Celtic. How many times have you heard the phrase, there's a player in there, but they get on, they're no longer a boy, they're no longer 17, we're still saying there's a player in there 21, 22, and you're holding on to them. Is that just part and parcel of the way the game is now, that the money and the retention and holding them on and the less freedom to move is sort of thinning out the overall quality in the league?
Yeah, well, the fact that they're not playing, they're all subs. I mean, you've got guys, I think, I'm not sure at youth team level, it's at least 7 subs. I'm not sure if it's 9. So I'm saying the B team maybe have 9 subs or 7 subs minimum. But that's the same all over. You go to watch youth football anywhere, it's the exact same. I see a touchline of players and I'm thinking, why could that touchline of players not be playing against other touchline of players, the subs for the other team? They're still getting a 9v9 on a smaller pitch. It doesn't matter. Just make sure they keep playing, and you make the substitutes and say, right, you go in there now and you come off here. If that's what you want to do, so be it. On our day, believe it or not, it wasn't about getting minutes. See, if you didn't play well, you were off. If you weren't playing well enough, you didn't get on. So it wasn't a matter of saying, oh, right, he's got to get 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day. They'd get a phone call on the Thursday and say, listen, your son Peter's not involved at the weekend, so you'll need to bring him. If you weren't playing well enough, that was the way it was. It was ruthless. And then I'm only talking about my own situation here. I would never have got an opportunity to play for Celtic's first team at Ibrox in my debut if it was the way it is nowadays. Absolutely not a hope in hell. Remember, I'm sitting in St Aloysius Chapel, as I did every morning, but on Saturday morning, I'm prepared to play every reserves. 17 years of age, ready to play every reserves. I could walk back down the hill from Chapel into the house. Mum says, we've had a phone call. You've got to get in a little bit earlier. I thought the game had been moved forward.
Right.
So Celtic only 14 players will travel with the first team. Bear in mind, I don't even know if I'd trained with the first team at this particular time.
Oh, it's
Maybe
got to be
once or
daunting,
twice.
that.
You know, maybe once or twice. And then all of a sudden I get into Celtic Park. Bear in mind, I don't know how we're going to get there at that time and all that sort of stuff. So you get there and I leave my mum at the front door. I walk in and sure it's fake, wee Bobby Lennox and Jimmy Johnston are walking towards me and just smiled at me. And every time I seen them, even though they were my coaches, I used to just get nervous. But so they would say, all right, son, you'll get your first breather at 10 o'clock tonight. And I just laughed. I didn't know what the hell it meant in any shape or form. But I just walked in and said, but listen, the manager wants to see you in Brian Scott's, the physio's room. And I'm sorry. He went, the manager wants to see you in Brian Scott, the physio's room. So I get into Brian Scott's, the physio's room, but there's nobody there. So I thought Bobby and Jimmy have been winding us up. No, a bit of banter. The next thing, the door opens and the great Davy Hay walks in and just looks at me and said, all right, son. I says, aye, gaffer. I'm thinking, oh, there's the first team gaffer. You know, must be in here before the game. This is all going through my head.
Aye.
And I went, all right, gaffer. He said, aye, son, you. I said, great, gaffer. Aye. He went, you're playing over at Ibrox today and see if I didn't think you could do it. You wouldn't be doing it. And I wouldn't ask you. And walked out. But as he's walking out, I'm like, are you effing joking?
You still think it's a wind-up?
Aye.
You still waiting?
I'm swearing. And then he's like, no. And I start sobbing. Honestly, actually tears coming down my face. So I have to go out. And God rest, my mum was at the front door. And I said, listen, tears run down my face. I said, I'm playing over at Ibrox today. She went, what?
Wow.
I went, I'm playing over at Ibrox today. She went, you can't. I said, what?
You can't? You won't stop me?
No, your dad's at work. I was like, all right, okay. I better go and tell the manager that then. But so all of a sudden, then I'm on the team bus with all these greats, the Dannies,
You
the
just sort of like
Tommies,
that.
Murdo, Provo, all these guys, you know, I'm thinking, wow, Frank McGarvey, Brian McClare, this is the front guys, you know, you're thinking to yourself, big Pat Bonner, this is surreal. I'm sitting there like a wee schoolboy, you know, but still the tears, my legs not stopped shaking since he's told me. I'm like a nervous wreck, you know, and I'm thinking, oh dear, what am I going to do? Then you get out to Ibrox and all the bears are screaming at you anyway. When you get off the bus, and I'm thinking, this is surreal, you know. Then again, the manager's picked a team, but the players are not really making a fuss over me. All right, son, blah, blah, blah. Not really saying much to you and saying, just go and do what you've been doing, son. You know, that's all they're saying to you.
That's sort of team talk you need, isn't it?
But then you remember, if you remember, we had behind the goal, obviously, but we'd half the main stand as well at that particular time.
Proper
So that's the
allocation.
Celtic supporters, you know. The only downside of the day is obviously we lost 1-0 a Bobby Williamson overhead kick. But the day was absolutely surreal, and you're talking about boys getting that opportunity now. You'd never see that happen now, that somebody's getting a phone call because somebody's taken not well or ill or something like that. That's just not going to happen, you know. So because it was in Glasgow, they'd only taken 13 players, so they don't even take a sub goalie. So at that time, it was big Peter Latchford and Packy. Peter would play in the reserves if he wasn't in the first team and vice versa. Right. And there was a couple of senior players who weren't travelling or whatever. They
13 players, that's crazy. 13
but that was
players.
What it was. So they had 13 players would go, 2 would be on the bench. All of a sudden, I'm playing. You know, so for not even travelling to playing, not anywhere but Ibrox, sellout stadium, rivals, everything, the biggest game people used to say in world football, all this sort of stuff. And you're thinking, all of a sudden, you're in the middle of the pitch. And I must admit, the only time I wasn't nervous is when I got on the pitch, because it was just like a noise, you know, a buzz. And I'd say 100% of the Celtic supporters probably, unless they read the youth team and whatever, wouldn't have knew who it was anyway. And the teams weren't named out. You know, and that's the thing, and that's how surreal it was. And it just wouldn't happen nowadays. No. You know, no way would it happen the way it happened to me. And that's why, through the difficult times, I'd still look upon my time as being grateful and thankful, because maybe I wouldn't have got opportunity in the modern day game the way mine's fell for me. And thankfully, I'd done well enough in the game that was me really in and around the team ever since then.
I was going to ask you, how did you feel you performed?
No, I played well in the game. I was very fortunate. I come off after about 80 minutes. I think David Provan went on for me, which was a surprise that David wasn't playing anyway, and I was playing before him. That was surreal in itself, and he was such a wonderful, wonderful player. But and I think it went off after 80 minutes. I'm sure in the game, but it was totally bizarre, and I thought I did okay in the game. You think everything's okay, but your life changed completely.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. Walking down the street the next day, you're walking down in Chapel Hall, people stop me in the street saying, "Seen you yesterday," or "Congratulations."
I congratulate you, but congratulate people you didn't even know was speaking to you, and it was just that was it. Then my life had changed forever. I never knew that particularly. I thought maybe for that day, but forever. That was something completely different. Everywhere you went, didn't matter where it was in Scotland. It just lets you know how big Celtic are. Because it didn't matter where you went, anywhere. If you were fortunate enough to go abroad, or your holidays, these summers, when you started earning a wee bit of money, people knew you there. You know, if you went down to England, if you went up north in Scotland, what you thought was the other end of the world, you'd find a wee mast and everybody would be waiting outside to get a picture or whatever, taking me, or wee things.
You walk into Guidi's and get a free meal, Peter?
No, but it was surreal, you know, but everybody looked at you differently. And I never looked upon it. You felt a wee bit shy about it but what the point I'm trying to make is it just shows you the power of Celtic Football Club. Yeah. People don't realise it. And I think you've even in recent days, you've heard Matt talking about it. People don't realise.
No.
Don't, and never will. To your party it. You don't.
You were no longer Peter Grant for the scheme. You were Peter Grant for Celtic.
Yeah, but to now, I'm 59, and all of a sudden, you're thinking people still. I left Celtic at 32, but all the clubs I've been to whether it's coaching or playing, everybody still remembers you as Peter Grant to Celtic and describes you as Peter Grant to Celtic, and I take that with great pride, and that's why you've always got to remember that, even at this age. I know if I'd done something wrong, it was Peter Grant ex-Celt. It's no Peter Grant ex-West Ham or Birmingham or Villa or whatever. It's Celtic. And that just tells you the pool of Celtic and how global Celtic Football Club is.
And how do you grow into that, Peter, so to speak? Like, obviously, you've told us a story, just being a petrified young guy that's having to go and tell his mom, going to Ibrox, and then obviously, as you say, overnight, you're recognisable as a young guy, as well as just trying to fill my God, I'm a Celtic player now, I'm first team material. How do you also grow into that, being a personality beyond the team, you know, getting mobbed in public and a lot of responsibility?
I think the biggest thing for me, and I always remember the first day I went into Celtic Park as a 15-year-old as a full-time, as I say, the ground staff and whatever. I always remember saying to myself, this is my first day, but every day is going to be my first day. Mm-hmm. That was the thing I had in my head. Never to get carried away. I was cute enough then. I maybe wasn't academically clever, but I knew in myself that I've got to look upon this as every day is my last day, because this could last 5 minutes. And that's why, even to the day, an hour I walked out with tears. I walked in with tears and I walked out with tears. And I'd made the decision to leave, but I knew it was the right decision, even though women tried to take care of me to stay on. Mm-hmm. I just thought the time was right for Celtic and for me at that particular time. But I was delighted the way I conducted myself in the respect of that. I was cute enough for the first day that I said to myself, every day is the first day, and remember how fortunate you are. And probably that's how I played with the intensity I did. Because also, you've got to remember, every day you could be replaced at that time. There was no transfer window where you get the buffer. You're saying, well, if I get to August, I'm here to December. You never had a buffer. No, every day you could come in with another midfield player in the door. And I used to laugh at that because I used to say to Paul, that's to replace you. It's not to replace me. You know, and the boys would come in, and the boys will all tell you, if it was John Collins, Pat McGinn, these other ones, Phil O'Donnell, God rest them, and all the other great midfielders that come in, I used to shake their hand and wish them all the best in the reserves. You know what I mean? Because, but you had to try and have that belief in yourself. But you'd always to say, well, you'll see me compete with you on the training pitch. I don't care if you're my teammate. We're competing on that training pitch every day, and I've got to prove to the manager that I'm better than you, and I've got to stay in that team. And thankful enough that all the managers I was under all kept me there, and I was very, very fortunate to every manager played me and selected me. And I take that with great pride now. At that particular time, you never felt that way. I just, as I say, because I train every day, right through my career there, as if it was the last day, and that was the way I looked at it. And that's probably why people maybe looked at you slightly different, but I never looked at people any different. I never looked upon myself as any different. And I think that's one of the blessings that I did have. There was the fact that I stuck by that mantra.
Yeah.
Every day's the first day.
It seems to me that you looked at it the same way that Tommy Burns did as well, that you were a fan that got lucky, essentially, going in there. I want to ask as well, with your debut, did your dad make it? Did he get to Ibrox to see you?
Yes, he used to work in Inverhouse Distillery.
Nice one.
He was in Inverhouse Distillery, so we used to see up to Gartness with the house. You could see up to Gartness, and you could see my dad walking down. He always had the jacket on, you knew what jacket was away in the distance. But my neighbours, I didn't know he was there. But at that time, you couldn't get a Celtic Rangers ticket. You couldn't get a Celtic ticket for love nor money for any away game. Right through probably my career there. No, even through the difficult times, you could never get and that's when you allowed you into every stadium. Aberdeen, whatever it was, Tannadice, you could not get tickets right through my full career there for away games. And obviously Celtic Rangers. So this is not even in my head, mum's exact work, but I didn't know he was there. But somebody actually went, got my dad, gave my jacket and said, your boy's playing out at Hingway, and managed to get a lift from someone who people never not a lot of people had cars, and gave him his ticket to get to the game. So he was fortunate enough, and I was fortunate enough, they managed to get to the game. So that was a blessing, as I say. And then the following week, both grandparents was there. So that was icing on the cake. They got to see, as I say, their grandson playing. But, as I say, they days, you never forget them. I could go through every step of it now with you and tell you that's exactly what happened at that time and that time. And that's why I know the next day your life had changed. Yeah. But I keep going back and saying, the great Tommy Burns and that, you looked at him, and that's what I'm saying about Danny McGrain. Why has Danny McGrain been voted the best right back in the world? But still goes up and goes into a freezing cold room up there, not even a room, hallway, stone, doing sit-ups against the wall. If that's good enough for Danny McGrain,
it's good enough for you.
He's played at World Cups and everything. That's why he's played at World Cups and everything, because he does these small details, and that's why.
Well, that's the thing. You went for having
professionalism for Danny.
You went for having some time. Oh, wait a minute, we're giving a wee bit of technical problems there. Are you back? There we go, we're back. You, yeah. No, I thought you had a wee technical problem there. It's all good. As you say, for your debut, you then go on and you go through an absolute fantastic period in that team. League champions, 85, 86, 87, 88. Chuck in a couple of Scottish Cups there as well. As you say, 10 men winning the league. Is that, in terms of that period, is that a
well, the 10 men winning the league team was 1980. I think it was 1980. That was. So I'm coming into that group. That was the team I supported. But then all of a sudden, these are all the guys I'm playing with.
Yeah.
You know, with a couple of add-ons. We go to Paisley, unfortunately, but 4 weeks before the end of the season, I'd played most of the games, and then I'd done my hamstring.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fit for the midweek before the last league game against St Mirren, obviously. But we played Motherwell at Fir Park, and Davy Hay again said to me, I'm putting you on the bench. He said, I know you've not trained or whatever, he said, but I'm putting you on the bench at Fir Park. So I'm as happy as Larry, thinking, only concerned a little bit, am I going to be able to, because I've not trained, put me on the bench at Fir Park. And then I was on the bench, and I come on at Fir Park. And then he put me on the bench at Love Street, and I come on at the start of the second half at Love Street. And that was my first championship medal. So brilliant. To play with a Celtic jersey, I can see it in the background there. To play with that on at Paisley with the performance the boys had. But I knew going that day, not that we'd win the league, but I knew with the group of players were so confident that we could score 5 goals against a really good St Mirren team. Yeah. They were so confident. It was unbelievable. But I can see why. I mean, with Brian McClare and Mo Johnson up front, I know people can talk about Mo, whatever, and we can talk about that later. Yeah. But Brian and Mo, wow, unbelievable players. We only Archdeacon was a young player in that particular time, because usually they only played, because I wasn't fit, only went to the left, and Tommy moved in central, Tommy went to left back, or Murdo went to left back, you know, and that was the way it was. So it was unbelievable, the performance on that particular day. But the funny thing was, me and Big Paul McGugan, we were going to Oban, a Celtic supporters function that evening. So
Right.
I'd get someone to take my car to Love Street. Obviously, you don't know if you're going to win the league. Hearts have been 22 games unbeaten. You know, you think they're going to go to Dundee to win, but we knew they'd win the game. So that was fine. We get there, obviously, you're winning the game comfortably. Then you're playing in the game. And then we get the shout on. I'm on the pitch at this particular time. I've come on just early in the second half. We get a shout for the side of the pitch. In fact, it's Davy Probin that's got his fingers up at the side doing 1-0. And the players were scared to look off, really. We could hear the supporters because it was a sort of, because we thought it was Albert Kidd that scored.
Right.
Walter Kidd. We thought it was Walter Kidd that scored, who played for Hearts at that particular time. And it went to the support, and they thought Kidd scored. Everybody thought Walter. But it wasn't. It comes through, it's Albert. And obviously all bedlam takes place, doesn't
You
it,
start to
after
filter
that?
through and you can feel it happening.
But it's on the pitch, it's surreal, actually, because this noise is phenomenal right round the old Love Street, as you remember. The noise is incredible. It's just building up. Then it happens quickly again. And you don't know, we're obviously on the pitch at this time, so we don't know if it's a full-time whistle or whatever. And then it's bedlam because it's 2-0. Davy Province put his fingers up 2-0 at the side of the pitch. We're 5-0 up at this particular time. And it was unbelievable scenes. But the funny thing was, I'm saying to Davy after, the first thing I'm saying, Gaffer, me and Big Paul's got to go to Oban. We can't come back to Celtic Park. He went, you're coming back to Celtic Park. And I'm like, oh, right, okay. So we've got to drive back to Celtic Park, go there for an hour. So we can't have a drink because obviously we've just won the league and whatever. And we're delirium. But we went and drove all the way to Oban. And we had the best night ever with the supporters celebrating winning the league. But we did drive all the way to Oban. I was player of the year, I think it was, and Paul was young player, I think it was at that particular time. And it was a great memory because you got to spend it with the Celtic supporters that evening. But I'm not sure they would do that now. And I'm not blowing smoke up us. I'm not sure you would do that now because I don't think that happens as often.
You
know, Celtic supporters function. But every player had functions at that particular time, every Saturday night. That's what Saturday night was, and during the week. So it's slightly different. But I think people would think it's slightly bizarre. You're going away for celebrating winning your first championship to drive all the way over. We couldn't wait to get there. I mean, we up for it once we got there, and it was a fantastic people. And it was a brilliant, brilliant memory.
And see, in terms of that, obviously you're speaking of that, and it's quite a story, and you can see the smile and the sort of excitement. As we say, it's also before we go on, you're talking about teams and big moments and defining sort of title wins and turning points in leagues. And obviously we mentioned the sort of 10 men. That's getting confused because you mentioned that story has been a big thing for you when we were talking about it. And you're saying you've grew into that team. You've then sort of taken over the mantle of one of those spaces for that famous team. Did you feel that the Love Street situation, that match, was that your 10 men win the league situation? Was that your defining league win?
Oh, absolutely. Even to this day, I still think we won it in points because obviously we won it in goal difference.
Yeah.
And it's quite bizarre when you think of that. And especially the Hearts team was a right good side at that particular time. As I said, 22 game unbeaten. For sure, there is absolutely no doubt that was a defining moment for Celtic again. But Celtic had their moments. Because people, and the fortunate thing, I look back, people talk about times. They talk about Paisley. They talk about the centenary team. You know, they're massive moments in the club's history. You know, they've got an individual name. There's only one that stands out above all that. The 67, the Lisbon Lions.
Yeah.
They're known as the Lisbon Lions, the greatest ever, without a shadow of a doubt. But for us to have a name as well as a double winning team, you know, the team that won at Paisley, you'll have the 10 men that won the league in the 80, which the team that I'm growing into.
Yeah.
You know, these are wee moments, significant moments.
It must be an honour. I mean, to play for Celtic, is huge, but as you say, to be part of a team with a moniker that's a memory that's really defined. You're not just another team that won a league.
Yeah.
Must feel special.
Oh, absolutely. And that's thing. And in these times, because remember, we won the cup in 89, obviously against Rangers. Rangers had spent all the money. They were going for the treble. and we still done it more than enough to beat them on that particular day. But moments that you have to dig in. So it doesn't matter how good they are or how much money they've got or what good of players you have.
Yeah.
You've got to remember what you're representing on that front of your jersey, that badge, and they supporters that stand watching you. And that's why I keep saying, people worry about managers going and coaches going or players going. I'm saying the badge never change. That's what you're always representing, not the name in the back. That'll always get changed. You know, and in our time, simple things changed. You know, go back to having a sponsor on your strip where we just had the number on the front of the shorts and the back side of the shorts.
Yeah.
That was it, apart from European
I
games.
believe the sponsor getting onto the top actually caused a lot of, oh my God, what's going on here?
I'm going to ask you a question here.
Yes.
Do you know who scored Celtic's first ever goal? I just found this out the other day there, and that's why I'm asking you.
First ever.
With a sponsor on the strip.
With a sponsor? Oh God, now you're
It
asking.
was C.R. Smith, obviously.
C.R. Smith. Let me think here.
Oh, Johnson.
Good guess. Me.
Was it? Seriously?
It's
I'm thinking,
unbelievable.
when I was putting my setup, I was actually going to bring out the 85 top, the C.R. Smith that was stitched on.
And do you know why?
The big patch, and it was all stitched. I was going to put that one up when I was thinking.
We played Dundee at Dens Park, and it was the first time with a logo on the jersey, first time Celtic had ever a sponsor on the front of the strip.
Right.
Mark Reid missed a penalty. And Dundee then get a penalty. And big John Brown missed it, who ended up playing with Rangers, obviously, John.
Yeah.
He missed a penalty. Then we get a penalty. And Danny McGrain says to me, I'm the youngest player on the pitch, by the way. Danny McGrain says to me, you're taking the penalty. And I would obtain the penalty. And we scored. Then we went 2-0 up. We're drawn 2-2. I think John Calhoun scored. John Calhoun scored. And Tommy Burns got the winner. But somebody sent it to me the other day, and that's why I'm so clear on it.
That's amazing. I ain't going to lie, no harm, Peter. I wouldn't have put you down as being that guy.
Centre forward, that's why I'm telling you. Centre forward, you always get that niche scoring goals.
That's what it is.
You never lose it, eh? Never lose that killer striker instinct. But that's there you go. Take that one home if you're watching. That's a pub quiz tiebreaker.
Either.
That's a tiebreaker question if ever I've heard one.
Speaking of pub quizzes there, as you bring that in, Stevo, I believe there was a thing about a quiz that you mentioned the last time I was talking to you, Peter. Tell us a wee bit about that, about the debut thing, was it?
Yes, it was. Well, what happened was it was a race night we were at, and obviously you join the table with a group of people and whatever. So there's about 10 tables or whatever. They're asking the questions, and great, everybody's going round, sport, football, whatever. And then it was who made their debut, and in this particular time it was Old Firm. The Old Firm and the Old Enemy. And I'm right away at the boys. Joe Craig. Thinking, Joe Craig. I'll tell you why. I remember him scoring for Scotland and then never playing again, I think.
Yeah.
I said, I think Joe Craig maybe. That could be the surprise one. They're like, Joe Craig? I went like, Joe Craig. Then I'm starting to doubt. I'm thinking, no, but it is Joe Craig. No, Joe Craig. So that's fine. We're going around all the tables and whatever. So, right, answers in. Everybody's answers are in. Right, we'll go through table such and such. Your answers all in. So with 10 questions or something it was. So they all get put up and they're reading them out. And everybody get the question. Table 10, so they come to us and say, so who was your Old Firm and Old Enemy game? No sort of a wry smile. No thinking anything else. And we're like, as proud as punch. Joe Craig thinking, nobody will think Joe Craig. And everybody just sort of looks. We're all wondering, what are they looking at? Sort of thing. And we're like, Joe Craig? No, we're like, and all the boys are looking at me now, and I'm thinking, oh no, it's Paul Wilson or something. You know, it's got to be something like this bizarre. And he went, are you sure he's just winding us up? No. I said, the boys are looking. I said, no, guys, I thought it was Joe Craig. Sorry, I apologise. And he went, seriously? And I went, it was you. And actually, obviously, I'm thinking Celtic Rangers. But I'm thinking, forgetting Scotland, England was my debut for Scotland, you know? So that was another thing. You go back and you think in history and you think to yourself, oh, well, there's not many people done that. But I never knew. And that shows you how probably locked in I was to Celtic in the respect to that. I never thought about
Oh,
what happened yet.
it's on your head
Yeah,
constantly.
but I never thought what happened yesterday. I was always thinking about, I better worry about today and tomorrow. That's more important. So whatever happened previous, and that was probably, and I was just thinking Joe Craig. So everybody's laughing, and no wonder they were laughing at us, don't get me wrong. But that just shows you how you can forgetful, and not even just when you're older, especially when you're younger.
Brilliant.
But that was the ironic story of that one.
Oh, that's so. It says we kick it further down the line near sort of through the 90s, which sometimes that gives folk a right shudder down the spine in the 90s. And obviously the club was certainly changing there. But I think the one thing that I'm sure you'll agree with, and certainly, as I say, this is where the likes of Paddy Boy and I at our age group, when we're sort of hitting 1990, 91, the memories start to become stronger. You start to have you associate the players, you know what's going on. You're taking a more vested interest rather than just running about with the top on. And there were some right cracking players in that team as we go into the 90s, despite, you know, what the sort of period brought for us. Just to give a snapshot, because we always talk, as I say, about the 90s and it's a bit of a shudder. What was the environment like at Celtic? What was the transition like in that period? Because, you know, there was some fantastic top talent still, and guys who can come through, as you say, the likes of your John Collins, etc. By that point, you've got Mowbray, you've got yourself in there as well. Phil O'Donnell. There's plenty of top talent. I've got a few wee bits that I want to talk to you about as well with regards to some of them. You've got your Jerry Craneys, you know, you've got Tom Boyd, brilliant names coming through. There's always a strong plethora of talent still in there, albeit that we weren't quite getting it done on the field. What was the general environment like at Celtic during that early period?
Well, it was really, you never thought it was going to come. Obviously, it really comes after the Aberdeen game. We get beat 9-8 in penalties. So that's the last time, 8-9 is the last time we've won the Scottish Cup. We get into the final the next year. Bang. You know, I just think there was different things. I think after the 89 Cup final, the Mo Johnson scenario obviously was, for me, massive. That should never have been allowed to happen. People can say they're thinking more or whatever, but it should never have been allowed to happen. If you lose them to Liverpool, Man United at that particular time, fine. But you can never lose anybody to Rangers. And I definitely think we suffered after that, because even in that period, we'd have won games. Absolutely no doubt, because there was close games we never won. But then people forget, and I do now think about it more, probably because Rangers are at Hampden now. I've thought back to the period we had at that particular time. People forget that we were at Hampden. But before we go to Hampden, there's a lot of animosity at Celtic Park before it starts to get changed. Obviously, sack the board, all this was going on. You're playing in matches, and that's not a nice atmosphere, because we want all the Celtic supporters with the team. They were never against the team in the respect to that. They were always support of the team. But if we scored a goal, even then, the next chant would be sack the board, sack the board, sack the board, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So this was going on for a big period now. Then all of a sudden the changeover has come in, the takeover comes in, brilliant, fantastic. We don't know what that's going to bring. But the first thing it brings, we've got to go to Hampden, which was a disaster. You know, then you're back at Celtic Park and you're playing with one part of the stadium built, some at no built.
Temporary stand as well.
Temporary stands, all these things, nothing behind one goal, seats sitting behind the other goal. And you're thinking, it's completely different, but it's home. It's Celtic Park, you know, and that's what we wanted to do, and we preferred it, absolutely no doubt of that. But I think a lot of people forget that at that particular time. Rangers were 10 years ahead in the respect to having the stadium built, you know, so they were ploughing the money into the players. They were bringing up league winners from down the road, England captain, you name it. They were going that way, and we weren't doing that. I never, ever say there was players, everybody that represented Celtic got that opportunity because they deserved it and people thought they were good enough to do that. So I would never be critical of anyone. I'd never say the talent standard was any different. That's me. They were my teammates. And I know every one of them gave their best. Whether it was good enough, that was for everybody to question, of course. But there was a hell of a lot when they go through as players. And people say it doesn't affect you. It doesn't in that 90 minutes, if you understand what I'm trying to say. But because we're all Celtic supporters, you're never away from it. Everybody thinks you know what's going on, so everybody's, and Your family's not think you know what's going on, but you don't know because you're just a player. You're just getting in, training, doing your stuff, getting back home and reading what everybody else is reading.
Yeah.
So it was really, really tough. As you say, some great memories, some fantastic players, as you say, some fantastic teammates. I look at the Tommy Burns team, which I still think to this day was the team that started putting Celtic back on the map again.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
That's my heroes. That's my team. That's the team.
And I think that team, you look at that, that was the time I was starting to go back down the London Road again, and you could feel the excitement in the supporters to come and watch the team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With the Canios, the Cadettis, the Toms, the Van Hooijdonks, McStay obviously been there, you know, and that was our front four really, you know, with Paul and myself in the middle of the pitch, and then you would add other guys here, there, and everywhere. But that team, as we say, we lost one game and you lose the league.
Yeah,
so
incredible.
It's quite incredible. We'd got to during that period, so there was a lot of. When it comes to the cup final against Airdrie, you see the relief on Paul, myself, Tommy, Pat Bonner, because we'd been there through the suffering. We hadn't just come in for a year or 2 years and just joined on the end.
You'd stayed there and lived through it, yeah.
We'd been through it, the lot, the six, for the day now we lost to Aberdeen in the final. We'd been there, suffered it, get kicked with it, criticism with it, everything that went with it. And it was really tough and hard times as an individual, as a player, because you've got to remember, for us at that particular time, we're supporters also.
Yeah.
But we're also carrying the burden as the player. You know, we're not getting the results. You're going with all the difficult times. I missed the Wraith Rovers Cup final because I was suspended for the final. If anybody in the world didn't deserve to miss a penalty, it was Paul McStay. But it was wrote in the stars.
Yeah.
You know, that was the way it was be. Did I think in '89 Cup final, when I handed the Scottish Cup to Tommy Burns, my teammate at that particular time, the next time I'm giving him it as he's a manager.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't think that club would that be the next trophy would actually be touching again. You know,
incredible.
So you never thought that at that particular time. You think, oh, things are going to change. As I say, we got close with that particular team, and I just felt that was the start of the foundations built again. But then people tell you on, and you think that because you've been part, you always think that's been the worst part of Celtic's history. But then people tell you up to the year I was born in 1965, Celtic went 8 years or something
with nothing.
With nothing. And you think of the great players that was involved then, the great Billy McNeils and all that were all involved in. And then it comes into the Lisbon Lions just after that, obviously. And that shows you what you have to do. And you see what's happened really since Celtic, since 96. It's nearly been success after success after success.
Absolutely.
You know? And you need their moments in time. And I was, as I say, I wouldn't change my time. I would change it for winning more trophies, 100%. Absolutely, more successful teams, of course. But I wouldn't change the time because I say I maybe never got an opportunity the way I did in the modern day anyway, because of the way things are. And that I lived through that time. You suffered greatly, you know. But it was special times with teammates that, unfortunately, I've lost a couple of them. And that breaks your heart that they're no longer there when you get together, as I say, when the Centenary team get together and whatever. That's shuddering at times, you know. So, but they're great memories that they were part of, and we'll never forget them. And we're still very, very close, you know. And a Paisley team, that team, all the guys, some of the guys we've lost for there, it's mind-blowing. And that's why I think I'd have never met these guys. I'd have never played with the Tommy Burnses or the Danny McGrains and all that. I was so fortunate. And that's when people say, well, you know where should have played? No, because I'd have never got the opportunity to play with them.
Be around these guys.
And that's the biggest thing for me. And I say, great for these players that can get all these great successes now. And that's why I say if they're ever getting carried away with themselves, I'd be saying to them every time, remember, you're only champions for 6 weeks. Because once pre-season's done, you've got to go and do it again. That's the expectation of Celtic Football Club. You've got to go and do it again. That's the way it is. That's the pride you've got to wear with that jersey. That's why when people talk about the jersey being heavy for you, that's the expectation. That's why you've got to do that. And that's what suffers, separates the players. When people say he was a good player, I'll say, listen, I never played with a bad player in the respect to that. I've seen them in the training ground. Yes, maybe they suffered sometimes on a Saturday at times, But they were fortunate enough to pull the jersey on. So for me, they lived that dream.
That's what matters.
Maybe it wasn't their dream. I just look upon them and say they were fortunate enough to pull that great hoops on. And I was part of that group. So the memories are magical, disappointing, but putting them all together, brilliant and great memories to have for me, even though a lot of them were heartache at times.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You mentioned that 95 and come full circle and getting the Scottish Cup, and Paddy and I'll be grateful for that. Eternally grateful. Thanks for being part of that team, because that was the first trophy I got to actually see.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You
lift.
guys are fortunate enough, and guys younger than you, predominantly it's been success.
Yeah.
You know, now the disappointment will be if they don't win 3 trophies a season.
It's
if they don't
crazy
win
to
the
think
treble
that,
every season, it's a disappointment. And you seen that last year, we only won 2 out of 3.
I know.
And that's the difference. And that's,
you spoke about the Tommy Burns team, Peter. You spoke about the Tommy Burns team. That team for me was the pièce de résistance for me. That was the best team that I ever seen. Like you say, Tosh McKinley bombing up the left, yourself.
I'll tell you a story about Tosh, just as you mentioned his name there.
Oh, love it when you go.
His biggest claim for Celtic was, what do you think?
Was that, sorry?
His biggest claim to fame. He was the one that got taken off when Albert Kidd came on and scored the 2 goals for Dundee to beat Hearts. Tosh was the one that got substituted. They take a left back off and put a forward on. So I tell him that's his biggest claim to fame.
Brilliant. That's excellent. If we get Tosh on, I'm going to chin him about that as well.
Absolutely.
Actually,
he chins me often enough.
I love it. I'll refer to one game that stands out for me during that period of time, and it was the Celtic Aberdeen game when they beat them 5-0. It was the debut of Georgie Cadet. It was the first time we'd seen him in the hoops. And I went to Celtic Park that day with my uncle, and I remember sitting there to see Van Hooijdonk. He was the hero. He was my superstar at the time, and you know, that was probably one of the best games to this day that I've ever seen. Tosh, as much as you slag him, Tosh played a worldie that day. He was a 12. He was outstanding.
I do remember, Paddy, but do remember, I believe it was yourself, was it not, Peter, that plays the defence splitting pass through to George Cadet for that goal?
It was. That was my claim to fame. I tried to pass it somewhere else, obviously. No, but that particular game, if you remember, it was one of the games where every player was above an 8.
Yeah.
And that's, you very, very rarely get that in a game. You'll always have one off or a couple of these off or whatever. And that happens. But in that particular night, because I think it was the first...
I remember sitting watching an STV. You very rarely get a game on STV either.
I think it was STV's first live game. That's what I was going to say. Ever. That was their first live game ever. I'm not even sure if it was a Monday night or something. It was bizarre. And we knocked the airwaves off of BBC Radio 5 Live. Get knocked off air that night with the roar of the Celtic supporters when Georgie Cadet scored.
Aye.
Because I remember George wasn't able to play for 5 games. The SFA had held up, I think it was Jim Farry at that particular time.
The ultimate price.
Some paperwork hadn't come through. 5 games they held him up for. And remember, we just lost out in the league, obviously. You know, but they were saying there's no doubt again, because with so many draws, George had that instinct to scoring. And there is no doubt in my mind we'd have won the league that year.
And you saw the difference as well. That cut-off volley that he scores at Ibrox, it's magically offside. That shows you, even though that doesn't go our way, if you have that 5 games, as you said earlier.
Oh, absolutely. I've no doubt in my mind. And it's like certain aspects. I listen to Big Roy and I listen to Danny at times, and they said there were twice that we felt we could have went all the way in Europe. It was a year with Rapid Vienna. We beat them fair and square here, but they cheated and we ended up playing the replay. And to be fair, in the replay at Old Trafford, they beat us 1-0 fair and square.
Yeah.
But it should never have been a replay. And if Celtic were strong, that should never have happened. Yeah. Okay, you're maybe get banned, but at least your principles were them right, because Celtic had done absolutely nothing wrong. Then, because of that, we go to Madrid the following year, and Madrid played, and we drew 1-1 in Madrid. We Mo scored for a Davy Proven cross. but we were excellent night. We should have beat them that night. But then we'd to come back and play behind closed doors and we get beat 2-1. And Roy and Danny and I listen to the two great captains, and they say in both of their years, they believe we could have won a European trophy. And that was the year Rapid Vienna got to the final and lost to Everton. And Atletico got to the final. I can't remember if they won it, but they definitely got to the final. Right. And that was two years that Roy and Danny, and I'm only listening to them, they felt they were two competitions that we could have won in their particular
just 2 years. Passed you by.
And that's what I'm saying. So you talk about moments.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is now how difficult things were. Yeah, they were, but we'd still magical moments in their periods, you know, in my career there. So I could never, ever complain about my time. And that's why I never would complain about my time there. As I said, I love more trophies, of course. But for that period of time and for their memories, I couldn't buy them.
As you say, as you go out, you say as you came in crying, and you go out crying, and you've your testimonial against Bayern Munich. We've all seen the pictures. By this point, you've got the flock of seagulls, haven't you? You get the long haircut, the glowing locks, and I believe there was a young Paddy at that game, and he told me this the other day, and I thought, there you go, always a chancer because.
Well, the funny thing was, and I was speaking to Paddy. The ironic thing was, I was going to play Inter Milan.
Yeah.
Because it had been 30 years since the Lisbon Lions. I think it was 30 years the Lisbon Lions had played them. So we'd asked Inter Milan, and Inter Milan said yes. So that was fine, that was done. And then all of a sudden we get a phone call that Italian FA were not going to have a winter break. So we're like, sod's law, I'm thinking to myself, typical. So we can't get Inter Milan. We phoned Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich were all over it. The only thing they said, they wanted it to be a competitive game because they have a winter break. But when my game was going to be played, the date of my game, they were getting back into the league programme the Saturday. So they wanted a competitive match. And we said yes. They said yes. So 4 months prior to the game even getting played, the great Gerd Muller and that were coming over for press conferences. Bayern Munich were unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable as a football club. The way they went about their business and the way they treated me and the way they treated the club. And we treated them well, but they went above and beyond. But the only thing, as I said, they asked for was a competitive match. And it was Trapattoni was a manager, but they had Matthias, Klinsmann, Oliver Kahn, all these guys.
Yeah, what
they all played. And it was brilliant because, as I said, they wanted a competitive match. And talking about them earlier, Tosh was actually in a fight with Rizzatelli during the game. That's how competitive it was, you know. But the likes of Matthias and that, and they were an absolute credit, and it was a joy. And I remember the great Tommy Burns coming in prior to the match and saying, because I'm panicking because I wasn't the most popular player in the respect to that. So you're always a bit concerned as people going to come and whatever. And I don't know why, because the Celtic supporters never let you down. But in your heart of hearts, you're a wee bit concerned. And the great Tommy Burns, as a manager at the time, he comes in and says to me, the game's been held up. This is at 7:15. I think the kick-off's at 7:30, supposed to be. And I looked at him, I said, all right, okay, smart ass. You know, laughing, you know. He's like, I'm being serious. The game's held up. He said, they're all around the building, they're all down the street, and the police are not going to allow us to start without everybody being in. And I couldn't believe it, you know.
Brilliant.
So when I go out there and the stadium's full and I'm thinking, wow, you know.
Yeah.
And I can never be grateful. And people always say to me, Celtic gave you a testimonial. I say, no, they didn't. The Celtic supporters gave me a testimonial.
Yeah.
That's who gave me a testimonial.
Do you know what that gave me? That game, Peter, that game gave me a signed Germany top by Jurgen Klinsmann because I run on the pitch at the end of the game,
right?
Run past all the Celtic players, including Pierre van Hooijdonk and everybody else, and went straight to Klinsmann and got him to sign my Germany top.
Oh, they were brilliant. They were brilliant.
And then got arrested and get 10 days in juvie hall.
I think that was one and only time, not the one and only time, but one of the only times that we changed the crest, if you remember.
I remember you actually had, so you had the 4-leaf clover, but you used to use in a lot of merchandise and the red heart. I think the tagline, not something like the heartbeat of Celtic.
That's right, it was a heartbeat of Celtic.
So it's very apt that for a guy that wears his heart on his sleeve for the club to have it on. And the
my claim to fame is I don't have a picture of myself with that. have a picture with Lothar Matthäus and Jurgen Klinsmann with his top on. That's.
Did you keep that top? Did you keep your testimonial top?
Yes, I'm sure I have. Yes. Listen, I was never one of the, as I said to you, they're all in bags and whatever. As I said, been down in England nearly for 30 years. So yeah, they're all in bags in lofts and whatever. And you take them out now and again, and the boys see them and they think, can't believe it. Because another day we didn't really swap the Celtic tops. I never swapped them even when they did start it, because I thought they were hard enough to get. So I never ever swapped my Celtic top. Didn't matter. We could have played whatever, the best, Real Madrid, which we did, Barcelona's. I never ever swapped. The boy would give me his top. I said, you can't get mine. And it was just because he was wanting a Celtic top, not because it was Peter Grant's. And I would say, you can't get mine. I said, I don't swap them. You know, because I always thought
that's the best way.
You know,
that's the best. That's the Chapel Hall coming at you, innit?
Yeah, it was mad. You know, it was absolutely mad, to be perfectly honest with you. But you think to yourself, bloody hell, some of the players you'd played against and whatever. But as I say, in that time, I couldn't tell you tops I've got in the respect to that, because they never had names on the back. It was numbers. So you look up the team. Sometimes you would look back and say, who was playing that number 10? Oh, it was Rivaldo, Barcelona. Oh, bloody hell, Rivaldo's.
Everybody used to change as well. I mean, you were obviously notoriously a number 6, but there's lots of pictures you as a number 4 and things like that as well.
Well, what I would do, some boys were superstitious. And I was superstitious about being superstitious. You know, I was one of the guys. So if somebody said, oh, can I wear that? I'll wear it. It doesn't bother me. You want this? But almost predominantly I was number 6. But if somebody didn't want, I say, you say me number 6? No. I'm not superstitious with that. Right, okay, I'll wear that. I wore number 7 in the 89 Cup final.
Brilliant.
You know, because we were trying to fox in the way the team was going to play, because we Joe Miller at number 11, as if he was going to play wide left, and we played Joe through the middle with Mark McGee. So there was things like that the manager would do. But also the fact is, see if teams were scouting you because you'd no names on the back, they'd go back right number 10. So if number 10 was a good player or whatever, so you would think, well, we'll change the numbers round. Right, you go 7 a day, you go 4, you go such and such. So if you knew they were scouting, because they didn't have any names on the back, so the scout would go up there like that, write the teams down. So then the next game, you would wear if you were playing against them, you would wear 5 or 6 or whatever. And sometimes we've done that. That's why you see boys with different numbers on it.
Because that's the thing. It was different, as you say, as well. And I think as well with the numbers, like to go down a wee rabbit hole, we used to have the numbers as well. The black numbers on the sleeves before on the back as well, which was a bit of a strange thing before.
Well, that was the first time they'd done it for television, dictated it. In the European games, if you remember the black number I played under, and I used to hate it, but it was a black number on the back. I didn't like any number on it. I liked the shorts at the front and the back, and that was it. Nothing on the Celtic top. You don't desecrate that, you know, in any shape or form, even when the sponsors spoke about earlier. And that was the way it was. But that's the way football had to move on. We understood that. But then when television was getting bigger and bigger, obviously with the numbers coming in, you had to be able to recognise the players. And then the names came along, you know, so...
I suppose we get that with the European thing now with the big white patch and all that kind of stuff as well.
Absolutely. Television's a massive part of that. But that, as I say, they were certain wee silly things you done. So at that particular time. But
can I ask you a wee question out of curiosity, just as a bit of a geek? But I collect tops. This is my thing. I'm a sad case of Paddy. He hates me talking about it all the time, but I just want to ask because I'm interested. See, we Celtic fans, right? We love the badge, we love the crest, we love the club, we love the hoops, and we're always one of the summer comes, the new tops, can't wait. Well, you're dead excited about it. Did it actually matter to you as players? Was there ever when the new top was coming out, was that's cracking, or was it just your uniform, so to speak, your work job? But was there any tops in your history that obviously the likes of the Love Street will have a big sort of massive impact for you, but was there any tops that you particularly fond of? Or one, for example, the fabled, I call it the Hills top, and with the red, white and blue logo on, of all things, the Celtic shirt. Was there ever any tops that one that stands out for you, or one that the players were like, Jesus, what's that all about? Like,
no, but I always like the tops that probably just before your time, the team I broke into my debut. Remember with the V-neck, with the green and white, and it was just green and white hoops. Yeah. You know, then the centenary strip was outstanding as well. They were favourites for us. You know, exactly. So they were favourites for us, and you didn't want it to be desecrated in any shape or form. But one size fitted all, if you remember. So it could be Mick McCarthy wearing the same size as Joe Miller, you know. That didn't matter.
What?
Everything was big and
One thing,
baggy.
massive tops, wasn't it? Massive tops
Massive,
all the time.
you know, because Nearly Malkin, God rest him, nearly was no way. There was no long sleeves, no nothing. The middle of winter, you'd just sim it on underneath because it was that cold. There was no change of tops at half time, nothing like that. But they were all massive. So it didn't matter who he signed you when you need to get a new top in for them. They just changed that. That'd be washed and you'd get that, you know, sort of thing. So, listen, I always preferred the Celtic strips. As I say, I always used to say less was more.
Mm-hmm.
The smaller, the less it was on the Celtic top for me. My favourite top of all time is the Lisbon Lions top. That's my favourite top of all time. You know, me as a kid, that was a top I had. Just plain green, white, round collar. I would die for that today. You know, sort of thing. Just that and nothing else. The white shorts with a green number on the one side and the green number on the back side. That was it for me. That was it. Cloth shorts, not the nylon shorts that we wore. We all thought were Diego Maradona for a while, I think. It was like
And they had those high cuts on them and all, didn't they?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was like swimming trunks and some of the boys would turn them up underneath and I'm thinking, you can hardly get them on anyway in the first place. You know, there were some shockers, don't get me wrong also. There was a few shockers in there, like the one that used to be the green with the sort of waves going across it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think Paul on it must have been 1991. I didn't like that at all. The lime green one, because that was minimal, really liked that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was breaking in, there was a yellow top, you know. I remember scoring at Easter Road, centenary season, with the yellow top on. I liked that, with the green shorts and the yellow socks.
Yeah.
At Easter Road, we won 2-0 that day. And I liked that top because it was minimal, as I say, yet again.
Yeah.
But the hoops, you can never beat the hoops. And but as I say, out of all the hoops, probably the centenary team strip was the one that's my favourite. It stands out for sure. I say a few shockers as well in there, but the centenary team I thought was the best strip out of them all.
I know, as I say, that's just a wee bit satisfied, a wee bit of geek in me. I always wonder if the players care much for the tops. And
well, you remember, but also we kept the same top for a few seasons, didn't we?
That was back in the day. We used to get two seasons, 3 seasons out of shirt now, eh?
And for supporters as well, because it meant the supporters didn't need to change it every year or whatever, you know. But I know things move on now. So the supporter could know they could have it for 3 years probably, you know.
Mm-hmm. I'm 210 quid deep so far this season. It's not even really kicked off.
No, but that's what I'm saying, exactly. So all these things are different now. Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying for the better, but I know things move on, so I understand that.
Well, as you say, talking of moving on, you moved on, you exited, you finished your career up, you made your way down to England, you see Norwich, Reading, Bournemouth. Nothing will ever completely compare to being at Celtic, I'm sure, for you. And then after retiring, there was a bit of played around with management, being in a coaching role, and of course this eventually did happen because you come back and you're with an old colleague, Tony Mowbray, and you're part of the coaching staff. Obviously for yourself, how was it at that time? It changed on, but at that point, obviously the club are in a completely different stratosphere. Obviously we've got like Lennoxtown, all this kind of stuff. It's changed days for, you know, been running a bit Barrowfield. And coming in, was there he's dropped in now. Sorry, here we go. We're back in.
Problem. No problem.
Coming back to the club in a sort of coaching role for you, with somebody that's a close friend beside you as the manager. How did that feel? I assume the pride's still back there, but did it feel different the second time around?
Well, you see a different stratosphere with Lennoxtown and whatever. Nothing will ever beat Barrowfield for me.
Yeah.
Even Lennoxtown being so good and whatever. I always thought Celtic should, what they're doing now, obviously for the younger boys, I thought they should. I know it's not the best area and whatever, security-wise, I understand all these things. But I think that's an area it should have been where Celtic's training ground was. That's me personally. And
like
I'll never change.
Home type of thing.
Yeah, I'll never change from that because I know the piling's not there anymore with the floodlights on. But that was the dream for me. Barrowfield was my spiritual home. I was in there since I was 10 years of age.
Yeah.
Playing under 12s then. And then you see on a Tuesday night, you were looking up and you seen the lights on and you were sprinting down the London Road. Could you get in there, go up the Rangers end to get and watch the last parts of the game and whatever? Magical, magical memories. And I just think we having Celtic Park down the road, it meant everybody knew everybody. So I knew every worker at Celtic Park. I loved all that part of it. I think that was so important for us. I know you've business now and all that sort of thing. Yes, you need your privacy and whatever, but I think we could have done that with Barrowfield. Not probably at that time. Now,
Yeah.
I'm saying now. But when I went back as coach, yes, it was completely different. Some things hadn't changed, which was disappointing for me because some things were still the same, which disappointed me in the respect of that. I was also going back and I was a bit concerned because I didn't want to be going back as a Celtic supporter with a scarf around the neck. In the respect of that, I wanted to be going back to be judged as a coach.
Yeah.
Because I went to earn my corn down by, and my pro licence, I was 28. So you'd done all that. So it wasn't the player that was going back, it was the coach that was going back.
Coaching, sure.
So I couldn't be seen to be jumping up and down the touchline like a maniac every time Celtic scored, out berating the referee, doing every tackle. And people say that changed. 100%, I was different on the touchline. There's no doubt that wasn't the real Peter Grant. I didn't enjoy it, I must admit. Periods I enjoyed it. But culminating in the St Mirren game, forget everything else that went round about it. Losing 4-0 to St Mirren, no disrespect. You deserve to lose your job after that. So I have no qualms whatsoever with losing my job in that respect after that.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously disappointed because I wanted to be a great success once you've went there. But I say there were certain things that weren't right at that particular time. But that's life. It's never always going to be perfect. I'd have loved to, again, as a player, same as a coach, I'd have loved to have won trophies and been successful. But when things went against us in certain games, if you go back to the Celtic Rangers game when they phoned us on the Monday after it and said we could have 3 penalty kicks. Sean Maloney was brought down, Aiden was brought down, and Zengi, if you remember. Yep. And then they scored in the 94th minute. I think it was the day Scott Brown was sent off. I think it was that day. I think it was, if I'm right. I'm not sure if that was the same game. I'm near positive it was because we could only have played 2 games at Ibrox, and the one was the 1-0 game, obviously. So I'm sure it could have been that day, but they tell us we should have 3 penalty kicks. All right, that's great on a Monday.
Cheers for telling me that now, eh?
Yeah, so that's right, exactly. So there's certain things never went. We go to Aberdeen, if you remember Tony's first game, and they're thinking, wow, this is liquid football here, sort of thing, because with Sean and Aiden tearing them apart, we win 3-1.
Yeah.
But it could be 10.
Tony came in with that. When I remember when he came in, I thought this is a great fit, and he came with sort of wanting to play, as we say, the Celtic way. It was about passing it, an attack-minded sort of thing. So it seemed on paper, at least, that it was what we wanted.
Well, we started the season, obviously you're trying to get players in as you're still trying to do now, and it's slightly different because transfer window is not slightly different, financial, it's slightly different. We know all these things. We played the Tottenham, remember the Tottenham Cup, was it, or something, or the Wembley Cup?
That's right, yes.
So we play well in that, you end up winning that, you've got some of the younger boys playing and all that sort of stuff. So everybody's getting hyped up about it, thinking great. Then we have a few good results, a few not so good. We go to Europe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the first time Celtic had won in 15 years away from home in Europe. We played in Russia, and we won 2-1, I think. And it was the first time we turned down the result for Celtic Park. We drew 1-1 at Celtic Park, but won 2-1 away. And it was the first victory you'd had away from home in Europe, considering the great teams that had been there and the managers that had been there, to think that they won an away game in Europe.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It was incredible. So you think, okay, we're trying to build that, and you're trying to get players of the quality in, and it's not easy. We felt there was a few of the guys maybe came to their time at Celtic, maybe changed too many too quick. So there's all different things. And you've got to take responsibility of that for yourselves as well,
I'm interested that you said that, because I think when we think of that time, there's still a lot of good talent in there, of course. And as you're saying, talking about trying to get the quality and it being difficult. One thing that a lot of people tend to say, it seems almost universal, that perhaps, as you said, and you've brought that out, that maybe too much was changed. But I think it would be like, people would say the term, the spine was ripped out. So the McDonald had made way, then we'd have Hartley, Robson, Caldwell. So people sort of argued
some of the boys who went away.
Wholesale changes.
As I say, Caldwell was there, Tony knew him obviously there, with a couple of injury problems. Some guys you could just sense that was probably why the manager prior loses his job. So we understood all these things, and why you don't change your manager if things are really looking hunky-dory, sort of thing. It's not as if the manager left to go elsewhere at that particular time. So we know that, we understand that. But it was nothing to do with the players. We got it wrong against St Mirren for sure. We didn't, obviously, you get beat 4-0. You deserve to be sacked for that anyway, so that's by the by. But there were certain things wasn't right. Obviously, players we wanted, we couldn't get, as normally happens, and we understand certain bits, but there were certain guys we should have got and could have got and could have afforded, and we didn't get them. So these were all things that was there as well. So certain things hadn't changed, and that was disappointing, but no excuses. When we got the sack after the St Mirren game, I had no complaints whatsoever on that. Disappointed, of course, you're disappointed, and I'd have loved it being more successful, but that's life. It just wasn't meant to be, and I can't say a reason why it didn't work. There were certain incidents, as I said, the Rangers game, then we draw 1-1 at Celtic Park against Rangers. We just went 1-0 up, and something we talked about, a corner. Somebody doesn't do their job, and that's exactly what happens. You end up drawing 1-1, but there'll be moments that can be significant. 4-4 with Aberdeen after being 4-1 up. You know, at Pittodrie. So that shouldn't happen. But you can't let for guys make mistakes.
Yeah, of course.
You
and
know?
as you say, Peter, you know, you come in, there's an expectation, and it's easy to say, and you know, you're being quite candid and quite honest about your assessment of it. It always is hard, doesn't it? Because a team like Celtic, with the expectation, you don't seem to get time. But the Jews have the feeling that with a wee bit more time, the season might not have ended the way that we wanted it to, but if you were given that additional time, maybe given a wee bit more support that you were hoping you would have got, that would have came right.
Yeah, well, we're not in the semi-final. Not a semi-final, Duke. They come up against Ross County or something. I think Celtic maybe lost. Remember the penalty kick situation? I think
it was Ross County.
Ross County, wasn't it? Remember the boy cleared the ball with his hand on the line?
That's right, yeah.
And they, as I say, so we were coming into that. We'd have been still good. If we'd have been still been there, we'd have been taking the team into that. So you never know. You never know how things work out for you. It wasn't meant to be. And listen, I'm philosophical like that at times. It wasn't meant to be. I was disappointed, of course. You know, I think the changing of the guard was happening with the players. Yes, people should say maybe to get people replacements in, but it's no easy to get replacements in if you can't get the ones out.
True. Yeah,
if you understand what I'm saying. So that's the disappointing thing, because that was the only way it was. It was like a revolving door. If you get one out, you can get one in. These wee things. Okay, we bring Robbie in, but that's not long just before it. I mean, first game was a bit of debacle down at Kilmarnock. Obviously, we get beat 1-0, I think. But it was all the hullabaloo building into that. Shouldn't have been left to that late call. That should have been done prior, because we'd brought in was it Danish or Norwegian?
Rasmussen.
And listen, he was a finisher, that kid, but we paid 1.2 million or something. But then the next thing, we can get Robbie Keane. Well, Robbie Keane had spoken to me in the summer when I'd got the job and said, try and get me up there. But there's no way we could afford Robbie Keane for his wages and his finances and that at that point. I said, you're joking. You know, and I knew Robbie, and then all of a sudden, not long before the deadline shuts, you get a phone call saying, we can do Robbie Keane. We said, well, why did we buy Rasmussen?
Yeah.
You know, we could have used that somewhere else to strengthen somewhere else. That was the sort of things. And there was other things. And listen, people will always say different. Of course, you always want time to build, but you can't build when you're getting beat 4-0 with St Mirren and you've drawn 4-4 with Aberdeen after being 4-1 up. Yes, individual errors, but there's none. That's your job as a manager, the coaches, that's your job. So it's to win games of football as well as entertain the Celtic supporters. And the way we played at Aberdeen in the first game, that was the way we wanted it always to be, you know. Then you go down to Arsenal, you're playing a Champions League game, qualifier early. Eduardo,
that was a harsh draw. That was a harsh draw.
But that's what I'm saying. But then we play Arsenal down there. Eduardo goes down for the penalty, if you remember, and it changes the game, because we're descending saying, you're thinking, great, they get the penalty kick. But he dived, a blatant dive. Then he gets banned for 3 games after, even though we're out the competition. You know, so we get into Europa League or whatever it was called then, and then, as I say, you get the first victory in 10 years or some 15 years away from home against a good side who draw 1-1 at Celtic Park with us. So there was certain parts in it was all right, not enough of it. So you end up losing your job. No qualms, fine. You've got to dust yourself down and go on with that. And it didn't mean Tony was a bad manager. He proved that. You know, he'd proven that prior and he'd proven that after. So
absolutely.
It just that's what, as I say, sometimes your cards are marked, in the respect to that. And I've always been a great believer. That's the cards you're dealt with. You have to go on with it. You know, you have to just deal with it. And I'm philosophical. Of course, I'd have loved it to be more successful as it would in my career. But there are moments that I had, and I'm very, very grateful for having the moments.
Yeah, no, that couldn't have put it any better. We always say that, particularly when we're talking about players as well. Sometimes it just doesn't work out in that role at Celtic for whatever reason, and people go on and do have, and as you say with Tony, go on and have great, very successful other stints at other clubs, and that's sometimes just the way it goes, isn't it? And
Yes.
as you say, but anything that we've taken for speaking to you tonight, it's about opportunity, it's about seizing opportunities, it's about giving it its all, and being committed to the cause. And you can never say that wouldn't have been the case, and your heart and your desires and your ambitions for the club would have been the same there as a coach as in when you were playing. So, you're being very
It
honest.
was always,
about that.
listen, you know what you're representing every day of your life when you were there. Obviously, you still do it now, even now, because as I said earlier, people still talk to you as Peter Grant at Celtic.
Yeah.
In the respect to that. So you still live it that way, but when you're there, it probably consumes you, your life. You don't have a life in the respect to that, because every waking day, every waking moment of the day, is that's all you think about. How can I make that? But for one reason, to make people that come through the gate happy. That's why you do it. That's what they represent. That's what they're watching. They're coming in their droves to come and see their team playing well and winning. And you're trying to put that package in front of them to give them that.
That's it.
And if they don't go back and enjoy their fish supper on a Saturday night after the game and their bottle of Iron Brew or their beer or whatever, you take that. We only get 10, 15 minutes to enjoy it after the final whistle when you've won, because you're already thinking the next game, because you know if football's got a habit of kicking you in the backside as a player or as a manager. So you know that. So you don't get the enjoyment everybody else, but it's brilliant.
Yeah.
When you drive out, you see everybody smiling and home for the game, and you have won. You can see them all enjoying themselves, coming out the pub with their strip on and whatever. That's magical. When you're part of that.
See, on that, to quote the great man himself, they're there and they're always there, and God bless every one of them.
Absolutely. And never been a truer word spoken. And that's what I'm saying. So through the good, bad, and different times, I know people talk about the dark ages. If you cut it back and you talk about the dark ages, you say, bloody hell, they had to get through a lot.
Yeah.
And that the players, okay, as supporters, because supporters weren't coming to Hampden because they wouldn't pay the money, because they were charging X, Y, and Z amount of money to Celtic Football Club to go to Hampden for renting it. Then supporters didn't want to go there anyway. The players didn't want to be there. You'd have a stadium. You'd all this. As I said before that, you'd sack the board. So there was a lot going on in that period. It wasn't nice. But you never changed the pride you had in running out that tunnel. Hampden, as I say, was different, but the running out that tunnel at Celtic Park was magical. But going there and dealing with that and pulling the jersey on was always the difference. That's what always made the difference. When you pull the jersey on. And as I say, going back as a player, coach at that time, when the team had won and played well, there was nothing better. Everyone was quieter when you came out, but you seen the punters with their strip on, standing at the pub, having their pint. That's you done your job if they've got a smile on their face. And never forget that. And that's what you always turned up to try and do.
Well, to bring it...
You're back here as a pundit.
That's it.
Giving us a daily dose. Thank you
a lot of people will be putting that on mute.
Well, and that's the thing. You come back now, as Paddy says, we get to see you regularly. We get to hear your views on Celtic TV and doing your punditry and things. To come almost full circle, you've always been a fan, but you're now like going as a kid, as a fan. You'll now be able to return as a pundit and as a fan and just enjoy the Celtic, just enjoy the football for what it is in its purest form as being a supporter. And we spoke briefly at the start about the Champions League. So just to wrap up, I don't want to keep you any longer. You've been here. I don't want to have you all night. I'm sure that your family will be wanting you back. But in terms of just to fast forward to the current, managers looking for this quality. We've got tomorrow still to go with the transfer window. Some things have come through, some quality players. Looks like Arne Engels, 11 million is going to be another record fee. What's your thoughts? What's your takes? Obviously, we get to hear some when you're doing your punditry, but What's your honest, heartfelt feeling, gut feeling to what we're seeing at Celtic at the moment with Brendan Rodgers? How do you see this Celtic team? What's the positives? Do you think we've got enough in the tank? Do you think we'll get that additional quality? How optimistic are you, in short, about where we are right now as a club?
Listen, you can't be other than very optimistic. You talk about the finances the club's generated, the players that they've got. The big thing about anything, doesn't matter where you are. I mean, we proved that last year at the start of the season. We had a few injuries to certain players, key players, and they're all key players. But there are certain areas of the pitch that you just feel as if you can never do without. You always need centre forwards fit. You always need your midfield fit, I believe, constantly. And you always need a top goalkeeper. So at this moment in time, you'd say you've got a top goalkeeper, you've got a top midfield. Even though we've lost Matt, I was interested to see Bernardo. I like Bernardo, and I was interested to see how he'd manoeuvre about the pitch last week, even in the short period of time that was him coming back. Because playing for Celtic's midfield slightly different. All my life I played with two wingers and two central midfielders. Now you've got three in there, but also you've got two fullbacks coming in there as well now. So it's making sure you're out the road of the space. And he does it very, very well. So he's learnt that very, very quickly. You know, the way they play that way. So I thought he was excellent last week. I'm really excited. I only obviously generally talk about Celtic in the respect to that. And you look about, is there anybody stronger than the domestic game? You'd say squad-wise, everything, absolutely not. Team-wise, absolutely not. Celtic have the best team. But the thing a manager will always look for is keep his players fit. And the one thing Brendan will be trying to probably do in the window is bring guys in who's going to galvanise the other guys. I think that's always important. And forget the prices, guys, because if you're saying you get Matt O'Reilly for 1.5 million 2-3 seasons ago, I know. I was on when Matt gets signed, and I'm telling everybody how good Matt is. That's easy for me because I'd worked with him. So, but when I'm talking to everybody else, but MK Dons, we should be looking much above that. It just shows you, you know, what you can get, the quality. And that's what I'm saying. People can grow with the Celtic jersey, and Matt definitely done that. So somebody could come in at 10, 15 million pound and they'll give you the same performances. Yeah, of course. So it's not the players putting that money on them. It's what we can get out of when he stays in the door. Because playing with Celtic is slightly different. The expectation that comes along with it is different. As I said, Celtic, outside Manchester United, take Manchester United out of this. Manchester United's the only team, when I was down in England for 30 years nearly, and they're the only one that gets the coverage front, middle and back. You look, summed up on Saturday there, everybody's talking about how good their performances in the England Premier League, but the one team that was getting constant talk about was the Man United result. That's the exact same with Celtic. There's no other team like that. Celtic's the exact same. And that's what people say to me. And I've been down, as I say, down in England. I've been involved in London derbies. You know, I've been Birmingham derbies, you name them. I've been involved in them, went to see the other ones. Not got a patch on the Celtic Rangers match. Not got a patch. And I hope they'll get the supporters back on both sides, to be perfectly honest with you. Hope we get them all back, because that generates a different atmosphere again. Oh, it's great, obviously, having Celtic supporters full. Of course it is when you've won, and it's brilliant to see. But I genuinely think we need both sets of supporters for that rivalry to keep it the level it is. And please believe me, it is something special. There is absolutely no doubt of that. We never want to lose that. And to be and Matt O'Reilly, no matter what, where he goes in his life, he'll never feel like the way the Celtic supporters treated him. Financially, he'll gain, and he's playing the Premier League, which is the best league. Everybody keeps telling us. I see a lot of boring games and that as well. But everybody keeps telling us it's the best league in the world. It doesn't matter. It's no Celtic Football Club. Brighton's no Celtic Football Club.
And he said that. We heard him in his interview about how you really need to experience it. How many times have we heard that?
Absolutely. And listen, talk about Graham Souness, for instance. I was listening to an interview done the other day there, and Graham Souness said, I've been involved in Italian, Turkish, Glasgow, Liverpool, when he was at Tottenham, the London derbies, you name it. Nothing beats Celtic Rangers. So for us, it's always just been Celtic. We say that anyway. I look at the Bombardera in Argentina, I always think, I'd love to go and see that, to see what that's like. You know, but when Graham Souness is saying that about the Celtic Rangers match, then you've got to sit up and say, oh, maybe we are right. He's selling it that way as if that's the biggest he'd played in or been involved in. And we've got to take that And the supporters have got to take that with great pride because it's them that generate that. And that's
Yeah.
why Celtic's iconic throughout the world. You watch cricket on the television, you'll see some geezer sitting with a Celtic jersey on. You know, you watch golf, there'll be a Celtic jersey walking past. You watch the tennis,
Open as
there's a
well
guy
last
sitting
year.
there with a Celtic jersey on. It's bizarre, you know,
I
but
love
that is hit. We don't need to sell it. I was in England with the West Hams, Aston Villas, whatever, you name it. And we'd go to Asia in the pre-season, whatever. Celtic wouldn't have needed to go to Asia. Celtic are already in Asia.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah.
to go and try and sell themselves. America. You go to America, Celtic are already there. We've already conquered there. You know what I mean? Of course, you want to build in another generation of supporters, but we've already conquered. There's already people living there who are all Celtic daft and they're flinging that down to their families. These English clubs are trying to catch up with that, and that's why I'm talking. Forget your Man City's, Chelsea. Yeah, they've got bags and bags of money, but they've not got the history and tradition of Celtic Football Club, and you can never buy that, no matter how much
Here.
money you have.
Absolutely.
On the Celtic
Absolutely.
Rangers part of it, Peter, I want to put you on the spot. Obviously, this weekend we have the Glasgow Derby back, Celtic versus Rangers. What's your predictions?
I never predicted Celtic Rangers match out of reasons because I played in that many of them, and they never turned out the way you thought they would turn out. Sometimes they did, but a lot of them didn't. You could be the team. What you need to do, and you've got a big thing now is VAR. We had
Yeah, of
referees
course.
before, but now we've got VAR and referees. And as I say, so
Dodgy.
it is in the respect of that, and I don't mean that as a criticism of the referees because look at this. The point I'm trying to make is, now it goes back to last season at Celtic Park. Lundstrom gets sent off, but he doesn't. He gets a yellow card first.
Yes.
Yeah.
In my day, that's a yellow card. I don't mean the tackle is because they don't go to VAR and
Yeah.
check it again.
Mhm.
So you've got double jeopardy, treble jeopardy, or whatever you want to call it now. So something can happen that can be brought back or whatever. It's fine, no problem. But you've got all these things in you now. Whereas, as I say, that boy would have just got a yellow card. Yes, they
And
could all be
that-
talking about it on a Saturday night or the newspapers on the Sunday or whatever. But now it happens right away. So we've got to keep all the players on the pitch, which sometimes is difficult to do. You have to try and keep all your players on the pitch. It's discipline.
Yeah.
You need your players maybe not to play well, but you've got to work so hard. And this is the thing I've noticed about this team, I think, this season, even in pre-season. They work so hard against the ball, and I don't think they get the credit for it.
Yeah.
There's 3 and 4 round the ball when they lose possession. Celtic have always been that. People think pressing's a new thing in the game. We were pressing 1980. You watch Celtic playing, get after the ball. It was different because the opposition used to kick it longer. But if they ever threw the ball out, Celtic played
Straight on
behind
it.
them. Yeah, that's always been the way it was. You know, so it's not something new. So, but the way they try and get it back, we were always told to, as soon as you lose the ball, the closest guy win it back. Now you're seeing, it was a St Mirren game last week, and it was 2-0 at one of the times, and there was 5 players were round one St Mirren player after the ball was lost. And that can be the difference. Forget all the talent and everything else that goes for it. You've got to be willing to put your shoulder to the wheel as they always do. They work really hard. They're aggressive with the ball. They're aggressive without the ball. They've got a better team. They've got a better squad. Absolutely no doubt. But there's always things in their games that surprise you. When you least expect it, they surprise you. And that can be a decision. It can be a decision of one of the players, as I say, or it can be a decision of a referee. So we've always got to be conscious of that. Go back to Rangers at the first one of last season. They had a party before the game. Thought it was just a matter of turning up, and then Kyogo scores.
True.
You know, and before that game, Rangers thought they had 3 points anyway. You know, and a lot of Celtic supporters did as well, if you remember, because it was the first time the back 4 were playing together. So many boys were out. All that, the back 4 that even finished was a completely different back 4 that started. So all these things, but Celtic still managed a way to do it. The big thing I've always got in Celtic's favour is, and I'm sure Brendan is, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, they're prepared to win.
Yes.
They're prepared, how can we win? And Rangers are prepared to how to stop Celtic. That is the difference for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, you can't say, we've said that time and time again, Celtic's philosophy has always been, we're going to play our game, how are you going to deal with it?
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what we're looking for. And as you say, and we've discussed throughout the course of this here, it's always been something that's been in our DNA. You know, we commonly refer to it as the Celtic way, but we always try to do the right things. as you say, is we've seen the transition through the pre-season, the difference between where we were finding ourselves January, February, when we were coming back in the league fight, carrying that form through. We just looks like we're getting better and better. And, you know, as you say, we should be very optimistic, and hopefully, we'll be getting a result at the weekend and then kicking on there. And as we discussed at the start of the show, we've got 8 fantastic games to look forward to in Europe.
Absolutely.
And hopefully
it's listen, the one thing, it never changes, no matter what. You've always have that great pleasure of being Celtic supporters.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. We'll have the good times, bad times, we've all had them, you know, but that never changes. And you've always got to remember that. People say they leave Celtic, but Celtic never leaves you, and that's always the most important thing. And that's why we've got to take and enjoy every moment of this success, because that's the way you want it to always be. But sometimes it's not like that. And if it is like that, you've got to suffer sometimes. That's it. But the one thing is, you look down, and as we say as supporters, never mind as players, you look down and see what you've got, and we've been fortunate enough to be brought into. That's the thing you always think, take with great pride, whether that's on the football pitch, and that's sometimes the thing that gets you over the line more than anything else.
Well, Peter, thank you very much. I've kept you for so long. We've been near enough 2 hours, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for coming on, giving us the time, your own free time to go out your way to do this. Some fantastic stories. We could go on for hours on end, I'm sure. No, listen, it's every day is a learning day, and as I say, it's always fantastic to hear some of these stories as well. I said, you know, you're a player that certainly, for Paddy and I, got the best bit memories-wise, at least a good 7 years that are, you know, firm in the memory there. But it's also good to hear these things and get a wee bit of insight as well, because, as you say, the game's changed as well. But coming from someone like yourself that's a true Celtic fan, as we say, one of our own, it does put into perspective exactly what it means to, you know, play for the club and to have that transition from fan to professional, representing the club. And thank you very much. I says, I'm sure everybody that's watching us will thoroughly enjoy listening to what you've been saying to us. And
well, I hope so, guys. And as I say, thank you very much for inviting me on. I really appreciate that.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
So,
thanks.
Anyway, we've been Celtic World Order. This has been Peter Grant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
We will be back again. And until the next time, as we always say in this channel, take care of yourselves and hail, hail. We'll see you all later. Bye-bye.